teachers of Reddit. How obvious is it when one student has a crush on a classmate? Story 1. Super obvious. When a girl says stupa while laughing at a guy who is teasing her. Or a guy goes out of his way to make fun of her, steal something from her. So she'll have to pursue him to get it back. It makes me 100% certain. Story 2. Depends on the age, but the signs are obvious as hell. Lots of staring, and not so obvious but very obvious attempts at being near them. Visible disappointment when they aren't put in the same group for group work. Jealousy in all forms. I've seen a kid hate a classmate for weeks because that classmate sat next to the kid's crush. For morning meeting. Story 3. Shout out to my high school econ teacher for noticing that me and a girl were into each other, constantly putting us in the same group. Straight up asking the girl if she had a boyfriend while I was in the room. Mrs. Anderson is the best wingman of all time. Story 4. Everything with students is obvious. I know who you have a crush on. I know when you and your friend got in a fight and aren't the same today. I know when you are having a bad week. I know when you've lost motivation. I know when you're looking for attention, and I know when you want to be left alone. Some teachers use this information to make informed decisions. Like sitting you next to your crush, cutting you slack that day, asking if everything is all right, etc. But I've seen some use it to be unfair to students. I work at an alternative school with kids who have lots of trauma from their past. I think if you cannot be compassionate, you shouldn't be in this profession. But I understand many have had negative experiences with teachers who shouldn't have taken the career path. Story 5. What's even more obvious is when one has a crush, and the other isn't interested. I'm speaking strictly from the demographic from my own school I taught at. So I hope it's clear I'm not generalizing all teenagers here. But I've noticed when a girl is crushing and the guy isn't. He is more likely, but not always, to be more forward about telling her so. To the point in 1 or 2 cases of sometimes being openly cruel to her. The girls in the reverse situation act annoyed and will sometimes make their disinterest clear. But more often than not they grin and bear it and try to pretend the crush doesn't exist. That's all I've got. I was there for months. Story 6. I remember one time during an 8th grade field day, hearing a bit of an altercation between a few kids. When I went over there, I saw that this one very nerdy kid was chasing another boy around the football field, while a few other boys laughed and a girl was telling them to stop. Turns out what happened was that one of those boys was teasing the girl, like that kind of stupid teasing 8th grade boys do to girls they like, and that the nerdy kid, who also seemed to have a crush on this girl, stood up to the boy to defend her honor and wanted to fight him. So instead of fighting, the boy ran in circles, while the nerdy kid chased him, furious and red in the face. It was very cringy. I got the vibe that the girl didn't mind the teasing from that boy, and that the nerdy kid's crush was probably not reciprocated. I broke up the fight, partly because I wanted to save the nerdy kid from his 8th grade cell. One think most of us have been in a situation as a teenager where we tried to impress someone who doesn't feel the same way. I didn't want him to look back years later and be even more embarrassed by it had it gone on longer. Story 7. They started hanging around each other a lot, always hugging, making lots of context for physical contact. Then they started holding hands. Became very, very close to the point that you'd never see one without the other. Until they finally started dating. They were 2 of the most troublesome children, and to this day everyone is afraid of this relationship. Story 8. Former middle school teacher here. I actually told kids one year that if they wanted me to change their seating chart they could email me. This was to avoid potential conflicts or bullying. Instead, a girl asked me to put her next to the boy she liked. I did. I wanted to reward her for asking for what she wanted. I think my exact words were, "Get it, girl." Unfortunately for her, he wasn't interested. Story 9. I had an amazing teacher. She knew I had a crush on this girl, and she might have known she had a crush on me. All high school assigned seating, we were put next to each other, all projects we did together. She put us together for everything. I'm marrying that girl in 4.5 weeks. Thanks, Mrs. Perez. Story 10. Used to teach 6th and 8th grade science at an inner city school. I told all of my students their best chance at dating their crush was to be respectful. The 8th graders ignored me and proceeded to make fun of their crushes. The 6th graders, though, they bought it. 11-year-olds were holding the door open and pulling chairs out for their crushes, being supportive and kind to one another. Cutest shit ever. Story 11. Well, not now, but when I was in high school, a student and a substitute teacher had a relationship. It started off as him giving compliments every day. Then after some time later they were kissing and he would grab her ass in front of other students. Don't know how she wasn't fired or how they were never caught. Story 12. In the words of my teacher, who I recently saw during break in college now, when she decided to sit in your lap every day and started playing house with you instead of working, I kind of got the hint. How in God's name did you miss it? Apparently, the fact that this girl was so obvious while I didn't see it triggered her. She even ranted about it for a couple of minutes in one of her other classes before she realized that that was inappropriate. In my defense, the girl was actively trying to send mixed signals. Story 13. A few years after I graduated HS, I ran into my geometry teacher. She vividly remembered me because I got a low C, but selected to retake her class because I really didn't learn geometry. Not her fault. Midway through the semester, she actually saw the look on my face. When I got it, we did a quick catch-up and she asked me if Michelle and I ever got together. I looked at her puzzled and said no. Why would you think we would? Story 14. The obvious ones would be obvious, but many more silent crushes will go completely unnoticed. So the tempting answer would be it's obvious. But the truth is that it's less obvious than it seems. I'll tell you right now that when I had crushes in school, it was top priority that no one ever find out, especially the object of the crush. Story 15. I was completely oblivious as a kid. In 7th and 8th grade, had a crush on a girl in class, and it wasn't until years later that I figured out she had been flirting with me, sitting on the desk in front of me, coming to me after class in the hallway to tell me she thought I was the smartest kid in class. I wasn't, and that was my response, followed by walking faster to get away from her. I remember there being other clear signs, but I have tried to put it behind me. We have mutual Facebook friends, so she popped up in my suggested friends at some point. She's still really, really ridiculously good looking. Story 16. Not a teacher, but my Spanish teacher somehow noticed my crush. I didn't have Spanish class with my crush also. My history teacher always placed me by my crush, not creepy, and I started to guess. That one teacher noticed, spread it to other teachers. Story 17. Not a teacher, but as a student. I enrolled in a home economics as a senior to get the easy credits. I soon regretted not signing up for graphic design class, because the class consisted of teen moms and their soon-to-be fathers with only 17. Virgin me in the middle of the class. So, yay. That is another clear sign that classmates had a crush on each other at one point. Story 18. If the two kids are in your class in the same hour, class period, it does become pretty obvious. They get all nervous around each other, but if I'm being honest, teachers aren't really interested or concerned about that. They've got a job to do. When I taught HS, I never knew or cared about the gossip, unless it turned into a physical fight right outside my classroom, which was the farthest away from the security desk in the school. So it was a popular site for fights. Story 19. Freshman year of HS, I had a crush so obvious that my teacher moved seats so that we were sat next to each other, and then he dramatically increased the number of work with the person next to you activities. We just thought we got lucky at first, but he kinda confirmed it was on purpose later. Lol. It worked. We dated for nearly 3.5 years. Only breaking up because we left for far apart colleges. Story 20. I remember one day my college professor was talking to me after class and asked me what was going on. He then asked if I was in love with anyone, and even my friend said everyone within 4 rows knows you like her, which was probably true since most people thought I was dating her. I'm not a subtle person and I know I'm obvious. Story 21. The average age of my students is 18 to 25. On several occasions, I would be talking with a female student about her progress in my class, and the male who liked her would be on guard and ready to speak up for her. At least once per semester, I have to give the famous, "The dumbest thing a man can do is speak for a woman who can clearly speak for herself" speech. I'm your teacher, not Mr. Steal Yo Girl. So sit your ass down before I give her the confidence boost she needs to leave you.